Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Greetings. Welcome to Readers Magnet 5th Annual Writers Festival 2024. I'm Lonnie Bray L. What colleges and universities don't teach in 33 pages in 3 days. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about writing for novel. We have 30 minutes. We'll take questions. I will answer your questions as they come as best I can. Feel free to type them in there and I will see them. Let's get started. Writing for novel. What do we need writing for novel? Many elements. First of all, pick up the pen and start writing. Idea. Do you have a title? Either one of these is a great place to begin. Some people, I have a writing friend who loves to begin with a title. She says everything that happens for her happens off the title. I don't have a particular starting method. Sometimes for me it's a title, sometimes for me it's the character, and sometimes for me it's a scenario. Might even be a joke, maybe just a scene. But the important thing is to begin writing. And before I forget, let's talk about what to write on. I was talking last lecture about writing on Word. You can write in Word, that's fine. You can write in pen and paper, that's fine. But when you get to production level and you're getting ready to formulate your book in a professional format, you should probably do a professional piece of software. I recommend Adobe InDesign. It's what works for me. Let's talk about characters. Who is your character? Your character, your number one character, your main character, is what's going to drive your story. Your character is going to show your readers what your story is about. Pretty much everything we learn is going to be through the character's perception. What they see, what they feel, what they hear, what they think, if that's your style of writing. Let me stop myself there. What voice are you going to write in? Are you going to write in first person? Is it going to be your character, your number one character telling the story? Or will it be another character observing your number one character tell the story? You may have what's called a grand narrator. Like God, overall, this narrator knows everything. He knows what all the characters are thinking. He knows when it's raining. He knows everything that's going to go on and everything that's going on. that's a pretty simple, easy way to write. It should be, but you can run into problems with that. I recommend writing how you feel, but keeping in mind the one voice narration, being the ultimate narrator, the grand narrator, whatever, the main character, or from whatever perspective you're telling your book, to keep that voice. It's very important for technical writing that you be technical and don't veer from that path so as not to confuse the readers. Let's see what I have prepared here. Your hook. Your hook's very important. Not just the first couple pages of your book or the opening paragraph, but the very first line. Your very first line does not have to be the hook, but your very first line should be good enough to interest the readers. It's the beginning of your hook. What's going to make your readers, the hook is what's going to make your readers turn the next page. Many books you'll pick up, you flip the first page, you read the first line, the first paragraph. If it doesn't hook you and keep you there and make you turn the next page, it's not going to make others turn the next page probably either, or enough people for your book to be considered a success. When I am writing, the hook is very important. I don't have to start with the hook. Nobody has to start with the hook. You don't have to start in the beginning or the middle or the end. But once you have an idea of where your story is going, what it is, hey, you want to click on that Letty so you know you can win a free Kindle. Click on that Letty. Find her. That's the little B there. Your title. Your title is very important. Your title can be like a hook. It should be interesting. Not too wordy, but interesting enough to make people want to pick up that book. There you go. Saw Letty. Good. Do we have anyone in the audience yet? Or am I lecturing to the digital media? All righty. I'm lecturing to the digital world. That's fine. You can pick up this and click on it and maybe learn something at your leisure, whoever you are, wherever you are. My writing background, so you know who's talking to you. I graduated Cleveland State University with a degree in English, creative writing, magna cum laude. My Master's of Fine Arts is in writing from Lindenwood University. And I have a Master's of Arts in Communications also from Lindenwood University. What do you consider first before writing a novel? Nothing. I don't. Sometimes my poem becomes a novel. Sometimes a song becomes a novel. But if I'm specifically focused on, I know I want to write a novel, I focus on the character. The character, where the character is going to go, what the character is going to do, what the character is going to show us, what are the character's obstacles. The character has to have trials. The character is either on a journey or a quest, and there's a difference. The journey is when your character sets out into the world to find something and goes from point A to point B. And when it gets to point B, the character stays there with all the accumulated whatever it is the character was after. And that's called the key. A quest is when the character goes from point A to point B, gains the key, and returns to point A with what was gained to share it with the people from the point of origin. So is your character going to go on a journey or quest? That's important to know. And you don't have to know that at first. Doesn't matter at all. But it's something to think about, and it's something to have accomplished by the time your novel's done. Let's talk about the key. What's the character after? What's the character want? Does the character just want to survive? Does the character want a treasure? Does the character want love? Is the character out for revenge? Is your character a good guy or a bad guy? It doesn't always have to be a good guy. The key is what drives the character. The character is what drives the story. I consider the key often, because without the key, the character doesn't know where the character's going, and so the readers don't know where the story's going. With a key in mind as a writer, when you know what that character wants, then you can have fun and play and find interesting ways to keep the key away from the character until such times towards the end of the book, and the character either gets that key and it's a success, it's a happy story, or the character fails to get that key and your story becomes a tragedy. So your character doesn't have to get the key. I find your book unique. Who are your target readers in mind while writing it? I thank you. And now we're off subject, and we're going to talk about nonfiction a little bit. My audience tends to be young adults. Why? Because young adults aren't so solidified in their mind, thinking they know what the world is, having opinions formulated about who's right, who's wrong, who was right, who was wrong, and where things are going in this world, in this life, and beyond. Young readers tend to be like sponges. Young readers tend to want to learn. So my target audience is young readers, young adults in particular. Writing for novel, when I'm writing for novel, I'm not sure who my target audience is yet. Even though I've written several novels, I consider myself new to writing novels. I haven't found my niche market with novels yet. And I think that's all right. I wrote the book, I put it out to the world, and I'm going to let a marketer handle finding out who my audience is. Marketing is a big thing with making your book a success. So let's go off the subject of craft a little bit and talk about marketing. If you have a mind of a marketer as a writer, then you have a big jump ahead on your work, because you know how to reach your target audience. You have an idea who your target audience is, at least. Maybe not how to reach them, but you have an idea who your target audience is. Other than that, I would say don't worry about marketing. If you're not a marketer, it's all right. Write your book and then find marketing. Reader's Magnet seems to be good marketers. How's your experience with TFOS so far? Yep. What's TFOS? I'm going to wait for that answer if I can. Yep. So my experience, I think that probably answered your question with my experience with TFOS. You probably know more about that. You definitely know more about that than I do if you know what TOF is. All righty. Let's see. Let's get from title, character, how to start your book. All right. What happens? What happens in your story that sets your character in motion? Does his or her house get blown up? Do the parents die? Something happens in the story that sets your character in motion for that key. has to, or you don't have much of a story. This is the traditional way of telling stories that's been told as we get the oldest recognized method of storytelling from Plato. We need a hook, we need a key, we need the inciting incident, which is what we're talking about. What happens with your character is called the inciting incident. Something happens, causes your character to leave home. For example, I'll use Star Wars. You've seen Star Wars, perhaps. Luke Skywalker loses his home and his planet's in danger and he has to leave the planet. And that sets him on a journey. Josa? I didn't catch that so far. Jessa. Hi, Jessa. Something happened. Luke Skywalker leaves his planet, and that sets him on a journey to study being a Jedi. And his quest is to defeat Darth Vader. Every movie or every book that you read, is going to have these elements. Inciting incident, lead character, title, hook, story, overall story. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Traditionally, your middle is twice as long as your beginning and your end. Act 1, say, for example, is 30 pages, abouts, for example. Your middle, your second to, those, can I see that question again? The literary worlds you're describing. Thank you. So your beginning is about 30 pages for a guideline. Your middle is in 2 acts, and that's 60 pages, taking you to about 90 pages. Your ending is about 30 pages. So for just for an example, that's how to write a 120-page book. If you're thank you. This is just a guideline. I would say don't use it if you're a first writer. Don't worry about it. Think about it. Keep it in mind. But write your book. Just write, because that's what's most important. And no matter what your plan is, there are maps to writing. You can check off this needs to happen in 30 pages. This needs to happen within 45 pages. This needs to happen by the end of 60 pages. But what I find is that as I write, all of that stuff changes. And then it comes back together. The most important thing is just to compile your story like a big glop of clay and then start chiseling away at it, taking away. Let's talk about chiseling away. This is a very important part, getting rid of what you've written, parts of what you've written. Takes a lot of guts, takes a lot of courage, takes the mind of an editor versus the mind of an artist or writer. Because even though we may have written things that we're in love with and it's good material, it may just be too much. It may be unnecessary to get the story across. And so, as editors, we have to, at a certain point, begin reading over our work and then removing part of the work. One way I find is actually fun for me to do this is combining characters. So in writing, you have these different characters who take up necessary roles in storytelling. You got your lead character, your protagonist. You have your antagonist, the enemy of the lead character, but not necessarily a bad person. You have your mentor, you have your trickster. There's others, your ally. These characters can combine roles, they can change roles. The mentor can become the trickster can become an ally, the ally can become an enemy. Minor characters often can be combined. So you find when you're writing your story, you have one character doing one thing, another character doing one thing, and this one's father, and there's a mother, and there's a friend and a neighbor, and you might find that the neighbor and the father can be combined. The friend and the ally can be combined. And that's an easy way to get rid of material. Shaving material, very important. Let me see what else I have on here. Beginning, middle, end. Let's take in beginning, middle, end for a little bit. Your beginning has certain elements. You have to establish who the character is, who your main character is. You need to establish what that character wants. And you should introduce your antagonist. Who is the antagonist and what the antagonist wants? The antagonist wants can be simply to stop the protagonist from gaining what the protagonist wants. Maybe the antagonist and the protagonist are after the same thing, and that drives the story, the struggle of seeing who gets it first. If your story is about love, well, you're probably going to write a triangle about two people trying to win over the heart of the same person. And let me read this question here. The seamless transition of your narratives to the virtual platform showcase your... Well, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that very much. That's a kind compliment. In your beginning, I think I'll leave that there so I can go on. In the middle, you have your conflicts of ups and downs, and this is where I do like to get several pieces of paper. I rip them out like this, and I put them together, and I'll draw a line. And the ups is when the character's up, and when the downs, the character's at a low point. And I'll write at the low point what that is, what happens. And at the high point, I write what happens. So your character has to go through this roller coaster from the length of your story. They have to have ups and downs. Everything can't be just up, and then they achieve their goal, and the character didn't have any hardships and nothing to go for. You have to give your audience a reason to root for your character. You need to make your audience want to see your character succeed. So why would they do that? Because your character is likable. What's likable about the character? Well, there's a number of ways to show it, no matter who your character is, whether it's a good character or an evil character. Even evil characters have some things that are likable about them. Like they might be mean to people, but they're kind to animals, or maybe just to one animal, or maybe to a sick grandmother. They have some qualities about them that are redeemable as a human, which means there's a chance for them to become good, no matter how bad they may seem. And maybe they're maybe they're good already, no matter how bad the things are that they're doing. Maybe they're doing bad things for a good reason. Maybe they're doing bad things because they think they're doing them for a good reason. These are things you need to keep in mind when writing. It's not simple enough it's not enough for the demands of a story just to tell a story as you saw it, or as you think it. There are elements that you have to give your audience, as we're taught in academia. You don't have to follow anything really, because some people break the rules all the time and they're successful. And if that's you and that's the way you want to go, good luck. I wish you all the steam an engine has. But before you break the rules, I encourage you to learn the rules, because if you don't learn the rules, you don't know how to break them real good. Breaking them real good, I break the rules, but when I break them real good. So first, learn traditional. I encourage you, learn traditional storytelling structure, and then have fun breaking the rules. Let's move on to the end, towards the end of your storytelling. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you. In the end of your story, you're reaching the climax. You have this part where everything that's happened in the story is coming to a head. People have lost. People, thank you. I salute you as well. People have lost things. Characters have lost things. Characters have sacrificed things. They may be hurt. They may be at wit's end. They're spiritually lost, is how we describe it. They're spiritually lost. They may not know exactly what to do, but they know what they need to do. And the struggle reaches a climax. And in that climax is the resolution of what's happened up until that point. That's the point where we see if the character is going to be successful and gain the key, or we're writing a tragedy and the key slips out of the character's hands. Whether you write tragedy or you write comedy or you write both, your story at intervals should have elements of both. You've all seen the faces of the theater characters. One smiles, one sad. You want to make your audience laugh and cry. You want to bring emotions out of your readers. This is what traditional storytelling does. This is what good storytelling, period, does. That roller coaster makes people laugh and cry, so to speak, figuratively and literally. You don't always have to make your character lovable. You might want to make your audience hate your character, your main character. Bringing out an emotional response. You can identify between facts and fiction in historical novel. I'll adjust that because I wrote a historical novel. Your character may be hated. You might want your character to be hated, maybe until a point or all the way through. You need to know that, because not everybody wants to write about a good character. The important thing is that smile and sad, make them love your character or make your audience hate your character. And let's address the last question between facts in historical. And are we talking historical fiction? We're talking about historical fiction here. And okay, so historical fiction. All right. It's difficult for your audience to believe anything if the only source of what you're presenting is your book. If your book is encouraging readers to be active and research some on their own and sort out what's truth and what's fiction, that's a little challenging for most novel readers, I think. But it's not too much to ask as a writer. How I handle it is, often I will present the facts part, most of the facts part, either at the beginning of a chapter or in double tab space. So here's your whole space of your lines in your novel in a short space with a different font, and writing from the narrator's point of view, and not the main character. For example, if you're writing in first person, and I do write most of my novels in first person. Another thing is you can have your character, your main character, or any character, say things that are pretty easy to figure out whether they're true or false. Like, for example, who was president in what year of what country, a natural catastrophe, so forth. But if it's something obscure, something not so well known, then you're challenging your reader to discover on their own whether that's true or not. We have just a few minutes left, about 3 minutes. And let me see if I have covered my whole outline here for you. I've talked about software, cover art. Your cover art and your book illustration, if your book is going to have interior illustration, is something that I encourage you to try your own hand at. Try your own hand at every facet of your book. That way you're a true, what we call in filmmaking, a true auteur. In filmmaking, we say you've done the score for it, you've done the direction, you wrote the thing, you produced it. I like to have my hands on as many aspects of my products as possible. But when you're busy, like I am here recently, I try to put some things in other people's hands so I can free up my space for other things. Learn how to write a synopsis. It's a short couple paragraphs, 500 words, maybe 1,000 words about what your story is about. If you can do that, and tell others what your story is about, then you know what your story is about. Some people write the synopsis before they write the story. All right. I've covered almost everything I wanted to cover with you in writing for novel. I'm going to host another writing for novel here in Reader's Magnet Festival Storytellers 2024 in a couple more days. So I encourage you to join us and tune in, and I will try to answer any questions that I wasn't able to answer now and fill in any gaps that I left out in this session. Follow me on my social media, Lonnie Show, youtube.com. Subscribe to me there. You can follow me on Instagram, Lonnie Show, LinkedIn. On Facebook, I have a Lonnie Show, and I do a lot of interaction there. I thank you for joining us here at Reader's Magnet for the Festival of Storytellers 2024 and for tuning in to my lecture. Again, this is Lonnie Bray L. signing out. Peace.